thanks for joining us today for the first in a new series of Tune Into Tourism. We are delighted to be back, and we're very excited about this new series because we are going to be focusing for all 6 parts on wellness tourism. Now, wellness tourism is actually growing at twice the rate of tourism overall, and wellness tourists are found to be more affluent and high spending than average tourists. So it's really important to understand this market so you can unlock the potential of the opportunity for your business. This first session is called What is Wellness? So hopefully we're going to answer that question during this session, as well as finding out a bit more about who those wellness tourists are, what they expect from your business and how you can cater to them with your business offering. Now, we've got some great guests as ever with us today, starting off with Chris Greenwood, who is the Senior Tourism Insight Manager at VisitScotland. A grand title for a grand man. So Chris, your trends paper this year at VisitScotland was focused on wellness tourism, wasn't it?
It was, yes. I mean, I don't think anybody watching or who read the paper will deny that wellness is a global phenomenon, and wellness tourism is growing at such a rate, and with all the assets that Scotland has, it's a great opportunity for tourism. Mm-hmm.
Well, wellness just generally is something that's being incorporated into all of our lives. I think it's certainly one of the reasons why I'm so excited about this session, because I'm really on board with the message. So we've also got, coming up a little bit later, we've got husband and wife team Kev and Joe Buchan, who both have a passion for health and fitness, and they created their business Strength and Soul, which aims to help others alleviate pain and illness through treatments, yoga and Ayurveda in order to live a healthier and more fulfilled life, which sounds pretty good to me. So they'll be helping us to get under the skin and into the minds of that wellness tourists, since they eat, sleep and breathe it themselves. But we want you to get as much as possible from this session as you can. So, of course, as ever, we've got Richard, who's going to be manning the chat box, which is just to the right of the screen there, and he'll be taking all your comments. Richard.
Thanks, Julia. Yes, good morning, everyone. It is great to be back to talk about wellness, a subject that I feel is quite close to my heart. I like very much the idea of finding our centre, finding our inner peace and all that. I also like the fact that we have spent a long time over these series of webinars talking about, staying connected, being digital, being on top of things, and now we're going to spend the next 6 weeks telling you to switch all that off and relax. Switch your screens off. It's time to find a bit of peace. But please do get in touch with any questions that you've got for the panel that's going to be on later, or any examples that you've got of like best practice or anything that you do and that you've been doing, or anything that you've seen or heard of, anything that you want to know more about over the coming weeks. Quick hello to Angela, who's in Caithness at Above and Beyond Tours. Thanks for getting in touch. Hello to Emma as well, and to Ellie in South Queensferry, and Emma in sunny Kintyre. Now, one of the things that we're hoping to do is to get some of your stories and some of the examples that you've done. So if any of you tuned into our last series, Speak Scotland, we had some video diaries where people were using sort of the Scots language and Gaelic language in their businesses to try and sort of increase interest and engagement with the tourists and the visitors. So if you've got anything along those lines that you're planning on doing, or that you're doing within the wellness world that we might be interested in, then get in touch with us and we can have a chat with you and maybe feature you on the upcoming series. But do get in touch now, and otherwise back to you, Julia.
Thank you very much, Richard. Well, some of you watching will indeed be wellness practitioners, or you'll already have a wellness offering. But there'll be quite a lot of people who are coming to this new and wondering what is wellness. And that is the name of the session. So, Chris, I feel we should start with that question. Yeah. Tell us, what is wellness? Can you define it for us?
Yes. Well, as I mentioned, this wellness and wellness tourism has become a real global phenomenon over the last few years, to the point where the United Nations World Tourism Organization, which is the kind of global body for the tourism sector and sector development, they've got a definition that defines wellness tourism as an activity which aims to improve the balance of all domains of human life, including physical, mental, emotional, occupational, intellectual, spiritual. So you've got this big definition, but the reality is it means different things to different people. So for some people, it's very focused. So it's yoga, or it's kind of a real spiritual kind of engagement, this kind of centering, mindfulness type exercise. For other people, it could just be sort of undertaking physical activities like going for a walk, or want to be by the beach, or so
eating better.
Eating better, yeah. It's just like like just making small changes to their life that are imperceptible, but would fall into that kind of just change in behaviours and lifestyle, and it's just part of that.
It does sort of encompass every aspect of how we live our lives, isn't it? Because it's everything from, as I say, how you eat, how you move your body, how you think, and then, you know, the activities that you take and how you go about your life, including work and obviously your free time as well. So when do we start to see this trend, particularly within tourism then, having an impact?
Well, I mean, I think most people who sort of are engaged with tourism in Scotland and visitors to Scotland will be aware of the kind of Victorian, you know, hydro spa hotels, you know, like Crieff, Peebles, you know, Dunblane, those places. I mean, you know, Scotland has a rich history in wellness, but the more modern phenomenon has occurred within like the last sort of 5-10 years. And you see it with, you know, these kind of changes in behaviour, you know, people wearing more kind of, you know, fitness trackers, watches, and, you know, indeed, yeah, you know, counting your steps, you know, sort of people thinking more about, so, you know, like the growth of vegetarian and vegan diets, you know, the growth of alternative kind of milk products, like, you know, almond milk, things like that. So, you know, it's really sort of been growing from, I mean, not from like a niche perspective, but it really is something that is growing within society as people are working harder, longer. They value their free time, and therefore, you know, they want to have something that is going to give something back to them, and that's where the kind of wellness tourism really comes in, because we're moving towards a experiential kind of transformational type of tourism, and that I think is going to be the future.
And I think we've got a slide here which talks about the rise of the post-demographic consumer.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
So I mentioned that we're seeing this transition over the last few years, and you know, historically, you could say that tourism was very much like a transactional experience. You bought travel, you bought accommodation, you bought activities and, you know, attractions, and that was it. Or, you know, you would go off somewhere and sit in a sun lounger in the sun, and that would be your holiday. Now people are looking more towards kind of personal fulfillment. You know, travel needs to mean something. They want experiences. They want it to be personal to them. It could be something that they want to boast about on social media, but it needs to be a reflection of their lifestyles. And again, this is where kind of the wellness comes in. You know, either wellness holidays specifically to go to, like, you know, spa or something like that, but also because they want to go somewhere and they want to engage in the local environment, or they want to, you know, be one with nature, or, you know, engage with local artisans or learn something new. It needs to give them something back for the kind of financial and personal investment they're putting in. Well,
you mentioned there, sort of touched on that the primary and secondary, what we call primary and secondary wellness tourists, and we'll get to that in a second, but also that the environment and actually the backdrop for holidays is so important to people, and that makes Scotland very well placed for this market, doesn't it? It's particularly well placed.
Yes, yeah. I mean, of all the destinations in the world, I mean, if you think about like what Scotland's natural assets are, for a start off, landscape is one of the key motivators that people think of. They think of mountains, they think of glens and lochs, and you know, all these kinds of things. It's
green,
peaceful.
Yeah.
But when you actually come down to it, Scotland has a lot of green space. I mean, we think about, like, you know, sort of rural Scotland, you know, Highlands Scotland, the borders, but even urban areas. I mean, Edinburgh has some of the biggest urban green spaces in the UK, for a start. Glasgow's proximity to Loch Lomond.
Dear green place.
Exactly, you know. So you've got that. So it's really a place. We've got dark skies, so you've not got light pollution. You've got... It's one of the quietest places in Europe as well. I mean, noise pollution is a big problem across the whole of Europe. There was a report a few years ago that highlighted that Scotland is very quiet. So all these come together. There's lots of potential for existing businesses just to incorporate wellness as part of their offering to promote this. They don't need to necessarily come up with new products, but to promote that, or create new products like, you know, using our forests to kind of, you know, do this kind of forest bathing that people like to do.
Forest bathing, I think, is a bit of a funny term because it makes you think of actual bathing, but it is just being in a forest and sort of soaking up the atmosphere and the environment of that space.
Shirin-Roku, I think it is in Japanese.
Right.
Yeah.
to learn a new term every time we do one of these webinars. So, and actually the statistics back that up. People think of Scotland as being a good destination, don't they? It's over a third of people in the UK think of Scotland as being an ideal location for a wellness holiday.
So I think it was 32% of visitors that were interviewed by Visit Scotland see Scotland as an ideal destination for wellness travel. So, I think we've got a very strong foundation to really capitalise on this.
So let's go back to that, the primary wellness and the secondary wellness tours, because they're two different kind of visitors, and there's perhaps a little bit more opportunity with one than the other. Can you explain sort of what those are?
Sure. So, it's kind of self-explanatory in terms of primary people that are coming specifically for a wellness product or experience.
So maybe like a yoga retreat.
Yoga retreat or an ashram, or they could be coming for a spa break, something like that. Generally smaller in number, but tend to be kind of higher value because, they will be buying a specific product. So, these are the ones that, will attract quite a diverse range, possibly erring more towards international visitors that are coming along. But they're the ones that are buying specific kind of wellness products from wellness providers. The secondary one is more about, this role that wellness has just in society in general. So people that are coming to Scotland, maybe for just I don't want to say a general break, but they're coming to Scotland because they want to have like the heritage and culture, they want to be within the landscape, they want to meet the people, those key motivators for bringing them in. But what they do is they incorporate wellness in little ways. So it could be we're going for walks, we want to be outside, we just want to hear the waves lapping on the beach, we want to hear the winds, and just recenter themselves. So it's not necessarily a conscious decision, but, it could be just sort of being one with nature. So, you're kind of recharging yourself. But it could also be simple things like having a really good food experience. So, maybe there's a really good vegetarian restaurant and, I'm not a vegetarian, but, maybe I'm going to just experience that. Or it could be just maybe undertaking a mindfulness course that could be running for an hour or so that they just happen to stumble across. And therefore, they're just incorporating that into their everyday lives. They're, of course, much greater in number and incorporates much more of the kind of domestic market as well as international visitors as well. But it's just that general kind of growth of wellness, as a movement within society.
Mm-hmm. So wellness generally in society is something that we're all engaged with in some way.
Yeah,
so
consciously or otherwise.
Right, and so it's a case of, I guess, tourism businesses flagging up what they're already doing and saying, hey, this is going to be really good for your wellness, for your well-being, for your health, and it feeds into what you're already doing. So it's maybe just thinking about the message and how you sort of sell things, like, for example, maybe also flagging up what walks people could go on, or working with other local businesses to maybe
collaboration is central to this.
Yeah.
If you think of the types of things that businesses could do, taking their existing product, it's just incorporating those messages of wellness in. So, highlighting through their, say, Instagram channels, the wonderful landscape that people can sort of like see themselves immersed in. And you say, that's the type of place that I can go. I can get that emotional connection. And, maybe I can sort of recharge. This is where I can kind of switch off, and not necessarily in the digital detox way, but just I can be myself here. I can escape, home, and this is somewhere else.
Is that key? Is it about the language that you're using? Because you use several words there. Recharge, escape, peace. And these, I think, are almost like trigger words for people to think, yes, that feeds into what I'm trying to achieve and how I'm trying to live my life. Yeah. So is it looking into that and maybe tapping into communities that exist on social media, for example, you're suggesting Instagram there, and looking for your kind of wellness hashtags, for example?
That's it. The way that we approach these things is what you want to do is you want to kind of develop stories which are going to engage your customers. And of course, when you get people that are engaging with the tourism products, like as a provider, my customers are going to become my biggest advocates. So if I can give them a fantastic experience and they can go away and they can eulogize about that through social media, and they can refer to friends and things like that, I can get more referrals in and, sort of like spread that. So you're developing kind of your own community and spreading that product. But it's kind of tapping into that kind of zeitgeist, if you want, of, people wanting that sort of experience-based tourism, that kind of transformational tourism that, is really kind of going to be, I feel, the future of where we're going with sort of like tourism within kind of society.
Mm-hmm. And I guess so in different businesses, there'll be different types of business owners and people who are working in different aspects of different sectors. It's going to mean a different thing. For example, if it's food and drink, it's being mindful. I did a little bit of an interview with Scott Fraser, who's from the Food People, and he's a senior trend analyst there. And he was saying, tapping into trends for low and no alcohol, for example, providing options of those on your menu, thinking about gut health. And really, being explicit in your menu, having sections which really play to these kind of trends. And as you say, if you've got a business which is set in, one of these locations that's so beautiful, it's really making the most of what's already on your doorstep.
That's it. And local produce is key to that. Showcasing local providers that are showing sort of low food miles, and people then can sort of like the wellness extends because you're taking produce from the local area. So again, you're getting that connection back to the land and the landscape. And again, you can get stories because you can tell stories about the artisans and the producers of the food. And again, that adds to people's experiences and the stories that they can go back and share with their friend. Because, let's face it, at the end of the day, you do like to boast about your holiday. And,
we still want to be on social media when we come back. Look at how zen I am. And those stories, of course, that feeds into the sort of cultural and the relationships elements of wellness and feeling connected to one another, connected to the past, connected to each other. Our time is just rocking along, Chris. Honestly, I could talk about this all day just as well. We've got 6 full webinars. How much is this worth? Just very quickly, how much is this worth? I think we've got a general stat on that.
Globally, it's around about $639 billion US dollars. That's the size of the global market, and it's spread across North America, Europe, and Asia is the biggest kind of growing area. And of course, they're the key markets. That target markets for Visit Scotland and Scotland in general. So we've got a good kind of foundation to draw on to bring people in.
So in terms of wellness, are there any markets? Are you saying Asia is the biggest one in terms of looking for wellness, primary or secondary?
It's the North America and Europe are the biggest in terms of value at the moment and volume, but Asia is the fastest growing area. And of course, the US, France and Germany, those types of countries are the ones that currently come to Scotland. So, there's already a potential wellness market that's coming both for primary and secondary. And of course, China is that big emerging market that everybody's trying to tap into. So again, the messages of wellness will work very well in those markets too.
Okay, so there's a lot of crossover with stuff that we're already doing. Okay, well, Richard, there's so much to think about here. What's happening in the chat room?
There is indeed, there's so much, and it's just so fascinating. And I think it is, just really interesting to just sort of stop and think about what is wellness, and to hear the numbers coming from Chris there about the value of it, the value of the market, the value of it in the tourism sense is amazing, and how much natural resources we're surrounded with here in Scotland, right under our very noses. I mean, we've had some great comments already from, we've got Angela Williamson, who's got above and beyond, and she just uses their local beautiful landscape, beaches and woodland walks as part of their tours, with mindfulness being a key focus. And also that's up in Caithness, where they've got big skies, that when the visitors come, they just love the big skies. Then we've got somebody else who says, well, I've just been Googling here, Emma McAllister Hall, they've got an infinity pool on their doorstep, which is actually the Kilbrannan Sound. So I've just been Googling the Kilbrannan Sound, which just looks absolutely amazing. So much here right on our doorstep, and just absolutely brilliant, just to start to begin to think about what it is and what each of the businesses can do to really sort of, I don't like to use the term, but cash in. Back to you, Julia.
Yeah, well, that's the key, isn't it, Chris? It's all that stuff is right there. It already exists. It's just a case of how we sell it.
Yes,
I mean, if we're going to be crude about it, crass about it, it is about selling what we've got to offer, and just thinking about the language and thinking about how we package that up. And that is really key, isn't it? And working, collaborating with other businesses. And I think actually talking about landscape, that's something in Scotland we sometimes are a bit limited in terms of our season, the length of our season because of the weather. But in actual fact, when it comes to wellness, that's not necessarily a problem.
No, it's actually sometimes a benefit, because if you're looking at being a primary kind of wellness provider, you're doing kind of weekend retreats, or you want to do kind of courses, or you want to possibly provide more kind of specific types of kind of wellness. The weather can be a huge benefit, so if water and rain are kind of key to your kind of sort of yoga focus, if you want. I mean, sort of like maybe having it outside of the summer would be a bit of an advantage. Certainly, the opportunities for wellness to extend the season, to distribute people throughout the whole of Scotland, to go to places that are sort of really engaging in providing that tourism product, like our woodlands, our coasts, our lochs, places like that. These kind of places that are really going to sort of inspire and engage people. It's a great opportunity.
Mm-hmm. And actually getting out and going for a walk in the rain and the cold, and then coming back into the warmth, and that's essence of rest and. And really being able to enjoy that and being mindful.
Yeah,
all plays into that.
And wellness goes beyond just kind of like the rest and recharging. I mean, like sometimes people want challenges, long distance walks within Scotland. Try and do the West Highland Way with rain and everything. That adds an extra kind of element that people want to
achievement at the end of it. Well, actually, just as you mentioned that, before we let you go, I just wanted to very quickly. We've got, as I say, we've got another 5 webinars to come, and we're going to be looking at lots of different elements there. You tapped into a couple of them. Next week we're going to be looking at recharge, restore, renew. That is your sort of retreats, and so your spas and on all that side of things, the meditation. We're going to be looking at that. That's a big part of it, isn't it?
It is, absolutely, yeah.
We've got the following. We've got outdoors and nature. Obviously, the power of just being outside. I
know, and such an important part is the activities sector that sort of like delivers those experiences that people are after.
So lots to talk about there. Then on the 20th of November, we're talking about sustainability. Now, these two markets, wellness market and people who care about the planet, they very much overlap, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, there's a huge amount of overlap in terms of that.
Yeah. And then we've got accessible tourism. We're going to be talking about that the 27th of November. Really important to remember that, whatever we're providing and whether we're doing activities, we need to be thinking about that, because that's another high value market that we don't want to be missing out on. And then finally, events and festivals. You talked about challenges, fitness challenges. There's a lot of those happening in Scotland, and that's something that we could maybe be capitalising on as well. Well, thank you so much, Chris, for joining us this morning.
No
and
problem.
People can go and see the results of that Trends paper, can't they, if they search on the Visit Scotland?
It's available on the VisitScotland.org corporate website within the research section.
Yes, okay, lots to find out. Well, thank you so much for all your stats and info this morning. We'll let you go, and we're going to bring on our next guests, Kev and Joe Buchan. But over the last few weeks, I have been catching up with some wellness providers to gain a little bit more insight into what they do and the kind of guests that they have visiting them. So the films have been going up on our social channels. You can check them out. Keep an eye out for them on Facebook, Twitter and LinkedIn. But if you did miss them, here are some highlights from a couple of them.
Wellness to me is thriving, not just surviving. It's having all the energy you want to do all the things you could possibly wish for. It's being the best version of yourself. I bring groups up for one whole week, once a month, to detox, de-stress, and really recharge, in essence. The people that come to my retreats are looking for, well, there's a variety of motivating factors. They might be looking to lose a bit of weight, they might be looking to de-stress, or they might have a health condition that is sort of inspiring them or motivating them to take action. But the nice thing for me is at the end of the week they're talking about how they are sleeping better, their digestion's better, they have more energy, and they feel inspired to have and lead a healthier lifestyle as a result of the retreats. You know, I've created something which is attracting people to the Highlands in the off season as well as the peak season, and I just think, you know, Scotland, we need to be proud of our shorter days and our wild weather.
My name is Nina Battersby. I am the sustainability leader here at Comrie Croft. Comrie Croft is a group of micro businesses who all follow the same agenda. Obviously wellness is a very big trend at the moment. It's getting out of town, getting reconnected with nature, and it's about the way you eat, what food you eat, the way you exercise, the way you connect with people and maybe with yourself. So we try and provide the grounds for all of that with our organic farm, fresh food, no food miles, ethically produced. We offer lots of, you know, group activities, coaching sessions for groups. We offer a space in our steading for groups to connect. People really care about the planet and people really are looking for better choices. They really look for our efforts to be a sustainable destination. It's a real feel-good factor for people to feel that they have a positive impact while they're on holidays. I think that doing good is really good for business. I think people are much more likely to come back if they know that their money is in good hands and that you are doing good things with it.
Katrina Mather from the Body Toolkit there, as well as Nina Battersby from Comrie Croft. And really, it was fascinating to go and have a visit there and see everything that they're doing. Really inspiring stuff. And Katrina, of course, mentioning there the weather and the options to extend our season, really making an asset of our cold and rainy weather, because when you come in from it and you're in the nice cozy beside the fireplace, then that really feels even better. Now, we have been joined, as you can see, two new guests. Oh, Kev and Joe. Welcome. Trying to get your names right, that would be a good start. So you run Strength and Soul. Tell us a little bit about what your business is that you run together.
So we help people that are injured, are ill, just want to get out of the kind of norm, the rat race type thing, to get better and to kind of get rid of this injury, bring their body back into balance and bring it back into alignment. And we love doing what we do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you eat, sleep and breathe wellness out. This is what I'm
Yeah, we try, and
sometimes.
I think it's a balance, isn't it? Because we want to each and every day take a step towards feeling so much better. So we both started our journey from a very physical point of view, where we had injuries of our own. Kevin used to play rugby, so he was always injured, and I had a hip injury. So we started off with a treatment called kinetic chain release, KCR, and that was the first kind of step of us starting into our business. I'm a yoga teacher, so started off teaching yoga and doing day retreats, and most recently doing Ayurveda, which is yoga's sister science. It translates to the science of life, the world's oldest medical system. So it's kind of wrapped everything up into a nice little bow and talking more about the diet, seasonal foods, seasonal living as well, to bring that wellness all together.
So you started off really for your own sakes, just trying to improve your own wellness. Mm-hmm. Through, as you said, the treatments that you now offer yourselves. Yeah. And that sort of developed into helping other people. Or was it friends and family were saying,
absolutely.
Hey, can you help me?
Well, I mean, so I did the course to help Joe with her hip issue, and I'd got some work done through playing rugby. And then it was just kind of, it grew organically, really organically, to helping friends, family, and then thinking, oh, actually, wait a minute. And now we're out at the barn, and it's fab out there.
So you've got the barn,
yes.
And what you do, day retreats there. You do what all do you do?
We've got a studio space, and we've got treatment rooms, and we've got a kitchen space and space to hold meetings and events, and where we run our day retreats. So we run regular, like weekly classes from there. we see clients for treatments there and run our day retreats there too.
And this, we've been hearing from Chris, this is a hugely fast-growing market. Have you just seen the demand grow over the time that you've had the business?
Well, I mean, we've now been at the barn for 3 years, and we're growing all the time, and we're building very much. One of the greatest things for us is that it is it's very central in Scotland, between Glasgow and Edinburgh, and it's in the middle of nowhere, which is a great thing for us in nature, which is fantastic.
That was one of the main reasons for choosing, not necessarily that location, but we were looking for a space an environment that when people came in, I wanted them to take a deep breath. I wanted them to feel like they were escaping from their day-to-day. So when you drive in, you're driving in a little farm road, and we're not far, we're only 10 minutes from or 20 minutes from like a local town, but just taking that extra 5-10 minutes on your journey to get to a space surrounded by fields, there's the animals in the fields, there's nature all around you. And one of my favourite things is that at the end of a yoga class, I'll say, listen to the sounds that you can hear around you. And you can hear the wind, you can hear the rain, you can hear the animals. So it's very peaceful, and that was a big thing for me, that I feel that your wellness is not just about coming and doing the yoga class, it's the environment that you're surrounded by as well is really important.
And that is such an asset in Scotland that we have, isn't it? I mean, if you're not too far away from, from Glasgow and Edinburgh, but in the Highlands and Islands, almost everybody is going to be in a position to be able to provide that sanctuary, that space, that the sounds that are different from the city, the different from the fast-paced lives that we all live, to get away from all of that. And it's really focusing on that, isn't it? Drawing attention to the fact that you've got that, and this is something that you could really benefit from. It's so simple.
Yeah, and I think what you said earlier, where it is, we need to see it as being such a big asset and not be negative towards the weather, because actually, like, I've fallen in love with Scotland all over again in this season, and I think every season brings something new, and it's stunning.
The colours and the leaves on the floor and the crisp kind of autumn days, and the dog running about, and it's great. And that's kind of, we love it as well.
And being near water as well, that's a big thing, isn't it? I know it's really important for you.
It's important. Water really calms me, and I think I quit the gym a couple of years ago for that reason, that I wanted to get away from being in an indoor environment, and I took up paddleboarding, and I bought my own paddleboard, and any opportunity that I can, just getting out in the water and just seeing the nature around you and feeling it doesn't actually matter how cold it is.
You just get in and
get in and go, and it's really peaceful and calming. Yeah.
And again, that's going to be for a lot of businesses that are taking part in this session. They'll be close to water, and actually you don't necessarily need to be in the water, on the water.
Just looking at it is very calming as well.
Yeah, so there's benefits there as well. So tell us a bit more about who your clients or your guests are. What is the demographic? Help us understand this market a little bit better.
So I think predominantly our demographic is probably 35 to 50. I mean, obviously we go out with that, but probably kind of
sits within there.
Yeah, it sits within there. They are predominantly female, however, there are more and more males coming through, and I think Kevin in particular, your demographic, because of Kevin's background, is the sport.
Yeah, and I mean that changes. I think when you get to 30, almost you get to actually, all this stuff that I've been doing, maybe I want to kind of tail it back a bit. So that's maybe why our demographic is what it is. People have stopped playing sport. They're going into different methods of keeping fit or keeping well. And it's not necessarily that, I mean, I used to run into people and love it. And I found yoga very difficult to start with. But it's really calming now, and whether I like the class or not, that's different, but I love the way that it makes me feel, and I love the calmness that it gives me.
You talked about being a lot of predominantly female. Katrina Mather, who we saw on the little clip there from the Body Toolkit, she talked about that as well. She's coming on next week, but she said the benefit of that was her business was in a part of the Highlands where you might not have necessarily had that demographic coming to do sort of very outdoors, active, more of the kind of thing that you might have done in the past that was quite physical, to do a more calming, relaxing, and it was actually bringing a new demographic to that part of the country, so that can be a benefit too, and it's not necessarily something that is a problem. And also it's shifting, isn't it?
And I think for me, one of the big things I talk about, particularly for women, is that they put everyone else first. you know, they've got their family, they've got their children, they've got everyone else that they take care of, and they kind of sacrifice their own health sometimes.
Right.
And I think that that's a big thing that's maybe starting to shift, that I always say if you can't look after yourself, then you can't look after your family, and it's important that you take that time for you and your wellness.
But also on the other side of that, if they're the ones that are making decisions about how you live your life
Yes.
and where you go on holidays and the sort of things you do, then if they're getting into yoga and mindfulness and the outdoors, then
that has
the rest of the family are
it
going
has
to
a
come
positive
on.
effect on the whole family, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. So what about the mindset? I mean, you've adopted this kind of wellness mindset in your own lives. Tell me about what the shift is, so that we can understand what you're looking for. So if you're coming and you're one of those secondary wellness tours that we were talking about, so you're not necessarily going on holiday specifically, you're not necessarily going for a full week of yoga or whatever, but you're going on holiday and you want to incorporate some aspects of the way that you live your life with that wellness focus. What are they? What are the things that have impacted on how you live your lives and the things that you might want to see, you know, when you're away from home too? So for example, food, you know.
Food is something that's shifted quite a lot for me. I followed a lot of trends, and that I'd done a lot of juicing and was heading down the whole vegetarian veganism route, and then I discovered Ayurveda, and Ayurveda has given me more permission not to feel guilty about food. So for this season for me, foods, and Scotland has it in abundance, it's very much the soups, the stews, the warming, the grounding food, which we need this season.
Does macaroni cheese count?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, yeah. Excellent. I love wellness. Keep talking.
But it's not about like knowing that you can have that and not feeling guilty. It doesn't have to be like you have to go on this big cleanse and have lots of juices. There's a time and a place for that. But we both love our food. We love to eat out, so that's really important to us. It's important to us to find different restaurants. And what you were saying earlier about finding food that's local and fresh and seasonal is really, really important.
So,
yeah, Kevin in particular loves his food.
But I enjoy the cooking and element and stuff as well, and I think more and more people are going towards being vegetarian, and we are not vegetarian, so we have a more vegetarian based diet. And I believe that certainly a lot of our clients are going down that route of they're not aware. Vegetarian, but they're more aware of what they're eating. And vegetarianism is becoming more and more. But you can still have that little bit of meat if that's what you're...
And particularly if it's locally sourced, if it's, you know...
Absolutely, and it's perfect. And I mean, let's face it, Scotland have got that in abundance.
So what other parts of the way that you live your life, so in terms of what are your little routines that you might want to still be able to continue to do, that we might want to think about how we cater for when you're away from home?
Well, for us, certainly, being able to take the dog places for us is huge. We love looking at places that, we can take the dog there, that's great. Whether that is restaurants or bars or whatever, or hotels as well. That's, for lots of people that have dogs, and when they want to take them out for a walk and all the rest of it, then that has to be very accessible. So that's quite important for us. And we love going out for a walk, and we love doing all that kind of stuff. We need to be near the water because Joe needs to get out in the paddleboard.
But I always research in the area where is a yoga class or where there's maybe a meditation class, just so that I can get to experience for myself other teachers, other studios, just other places and different teachings, or maybe a little workshop. So anything that's kind of health-based related, foods, gut health, you know, just to get an experience of what's local as well and other businesses around us.
I feel like we're going to be, a lot of these things are going to keep coming up.
They are.
But it is collaborating as well, isn't it? Do you work with other practitioners within your business, or are you sort of fairly self-contained?
So we do a bit of both. I mean, we work within companies, looking at the kind of company's health and well-being and stuff like that, cutting absence rates and stuff. But I mean, we work with other yoga teachers, we do work with other practitioners occasionally. But
I've collaborated with day retreats where I've done some yoga and we've maybe had somebody in between to do like a little workshop and something, and we have people come and hire out the space and they hold their own events within our space as well.
So there's an element of being able to mix and match a wee bit, and for other tourism businesses that are watching today, maybe have a think about who in your local area you might be able to work with to bring in, as you say, because if you've a business business, accommodation provider, for example, says, hey, one of the things we do is we have a morning yoga class, or we do an evening meditation, or we've got a local tour guide who can take you out to do a bit of forest bathing, my new favourite term. That's something that could really enhance the appeal of your business, and it doesn't necessarily take too much effort on your part if that is something that's already existing in your local.
Because we're all reaching, and we're all reaching the same goal. You know, we're all looking to improve wellness, and everybody takes different things out of it, what they need.
How important is sustainability to you? We saw a little clip there earlier as well from Comrie-Croft. They very focused on sustainability. They've got the solar panels. They've got, you know, they deal with their own waste. They produce their own food, which they sell locally as well, chemical free and all that. And it does seem to be, and they encourage people not to come in their cars. They give a discount if you don't bring your car. We will again be talking to them in our later session about sustainability. But that is something that's important, isn't it? Caring about the planet is something that is at the heart of wellness as well.
More and more of our clients have that kind of mindfulness idea of sustainability. And the new things that are happening just now with the plastic straws and stuff is great. And more people, and not bringing the cars, a great idea. I think that's fantastic. So I mean, we kind of try and really minimise our rubbish and stuff like that. We don't have processed food and stuff, so it's all kind of, that's very sustainable.
It's harder being in a rural area because people need to travel by cars to get
there.
That is a bit of an issue. You know, it is a bit of an issue. However, you know, I think I was teaching a class last week on ahimsa, which is the first yama, the first limb of yoga, which is non-harming. So it's non-harming to yourself, to other people, and to the environment. So it fits in really well with the way the world's going and sustainable, and everyone's much more aware of their actions and the impact that has on the environment. So it is really important to us, and we're taking steps every day to try and change that.
Well, that's really interesting that you say that. So actually people that are doing yoga, which is a lot of people have taken up that, actually part of the practice is not to do harm.
So that's the philosophy part, that people think it's just the physical yoga postures, and there's a whole philosophy behind how you live.
I want to get to the wellness wheel actually.
Yes.
I want to talk about that in a second, but let's just throw across to Richard just to see what's happening in the chat box. Richard.
Thanks, Julia. I thought you would never ask. Listen, we've got lots of people who have been getting in touch. I think somebody's been in touch, I haven't written down your name, sorry, about garden tourism. The importance is, like Caroline, garden tourism vastly underestimated across the UK, and Discover Scottish Gardens is looking to build on this trend and is focusing currently on international markets in North America. Heidi has made a point that seems to have really chimed. Heidi, thanks, Heidi, as in Spain Bridge, is that well-being tourists can be reassured by consuming sustainable products and feel that they are contributing positively to the destination, which I think is a very interesting point. And also the other thing that seems to really be resonating is it's finally to have found a use for the weather. You've mentioned this already, Julia, but making a real asset of the wind, the howling wind and the driving rain, it really makes you feel alive. Now, Angela, the other thing that I think is that you're talking about sustainability, which we are going to be focusing on in a future webinar, but also something else that Julia touched on that has been really chimed in here by Angela, who's made this point about collaboration amongst businesses in your area. Now, Angela says a key part of their tours is to include local businesses which are providing a wide range of products, you know, but she's talking about such as a local chocolatier, because I think chocolate's very important for wellness, a gin distillery, which again, you know, time and a place for finding that little moment of calm, and a mindfulness artist, and she's building all of that into the tour in the area to sort of really focus on the area of wellness and collaboration within their business. So I think that's very interesting all around. Anyway, that's all I've got to say for now. Julia, back to you.
Thank you very much, Richard. And of course, all of these things we will be discussing, so make sure you are signed up for the rest of the webinars in this series, and we can talk more about all this stuff. We are trying to talk generally today about what is wellness. I've brought my chair up because you're so tall, Kevin. You're making me look tiny. So, in case you're wondering what's changed, Richard's been yelling at me too. So actually, we're running out of time. So let's just very quickly, two things I want to talk about. One, the wellness wheel. I think we'll be able to pull that up so people can see that. So let's have a wee look at that. So the wellness wheel, It's all the different aspects of what wellness means. I think we've touched on quite a lot of them already. It's the physical, so that is your body, how you move your body. It is social and cultural and how we relate to one another. That's really important too as well, isn't it?
Yeah, that's really important. And I think what's been really lovely over the period of time of building our business is we've got a really nice community where people are supporting each other and they're chatting about the changes they're making and how they feel and concerns they have. So I think finding like-minded people who are on that same journey as you is really important.
Yeah, I know for myself, certainly anytime I've tried to make a change or do anything for, myself, finding communities, finding forums online, for example, when it was weight loss, and other people who are doing it too, so you don't bore everyone around you with like banging on about how you feel every day about your diet.
A bit of support goes a long way.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this sort of no alcohol thing, sometimes people will give up alcohol for a little bit of time, finding communities of other people doing that again, really, really helpful, really makes it easier as well when you know that you're not alone. Intellectual, so that's feeling like you're learning as well, isn't it? So people, when they're going away on holiday, could be learning about history, it could be developing, reading, or all these things, they tie into wellness. It's not just about moving your body and eating good food. Other ones on there, spiritual, obviously that comes into a lot of what you do with the yoga. Environmental, huge part of it. In fact, probably the primary reason that people who are looking for a wellness holiday is going to be the environment that they're in. So that's huge here in Scotland. So before we wrap up, I just wanted to ask you about sort of when we're marketing to these visitors, to the wellness tourists, of which you are both providing for and are. Yes. What do we need to be thinking about in terms of the tone of our message, the language of our message, and how we deliver that? Where are we going to find people, and how are we going to talk to them?
Well, do you know what? One of the major things, we are currently looking for a retreat house in Scotland to take our clients. And one of the kind of major things that we've been finding is it's a lot of double beds, and sometimes that isn't suitable for like something like a yoga retreat.
It's a lot of single travellers or
so
people going away.
As much as we
get away from their families.
Well, everybody, and I mean, there is couples involved and stuff like that, but a lot of the time it is single beds, stuff like that, and that's one of the kind of biggest things that we're having difficulty finding. So because everybody else wants a double bed or a king size bed or whatever, and we're kind of struggling to find that.
Right, okay. Well, that's interesting, something to think about, And in terms of like the tone of the message, so when you're trying to market to these people and probably just selling what you already have in terms of, hey, look at this beautiful, peaceful surrounding. Look at how close we are to the tranquility of the sea. I mean, it really is thinking about your message, isn't it?
I think it is, and that's one of the things we use in our messages all the time, is that we are surrounded by nature. We're still close to kind of local towns like Livingston, we're 30 minutes from Edinburgh, Glasgow, Stirling, but when you come out of that, we are surrounded by nature and it's really quiet and it's peaceful, and we want people to come and take a big deep breath. So that is one of the key things, is environment. And I think hearing other people's stories, other people's experiences of how they felt when they were there and the changes that they've experienced is important too.
Yeah.
The people in the Highlands have got that in abundance.
Absolutely. And where are we going to find these online communities then of people? Where would you say would be a good place to look so that people, if they're wanting to research what they might be able to offer and what might be of interest to guests?
I think, Facebook groups is a big thing, and just talking about there, we don't have our own Facebook group, and I think that's something we might have to start now. But that's probably the first thing that I start. But I think if you're not on Facebook, maybe having a chat to people, or finding, going to a class or a workshop or something in the area. Sometimes meeting people can be better for your health than being online. I think that's really important too.
So we have to practice what we preach as well. Fantastic. Well, listen, so much to think about, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
I'm going to probably pick your brains about how I can improve my own wellness afterwards, so you're not getting to escape just yet. But thank you very much for joining us. Just before we go, I just want to flag up again you're there. What we've got coming up in the next 5 sessions. I think, Al, we can stick those up on the screen just now. As I said, next week we are going to be speaking to Katrina again, when we're going to be talking about recharge, restore, renew. Then we've got the outdoors and nature, again something we just have such a huge asset of in Scotland, how we can make the most of that. And then sustainability, again we'll have actually Andrew from the Comrie Croft who can talk about how they're doing that and what people love about what their efforts are there. Accessible tourism on the 27th of November, huge market actually, and very lucrative as well, something we need to not be ignoring, and then events and festivals on the 4th of December. So make sure you signed up for that. If you haven't yet, if you just signed up for this session, you can go back and sign up for the other sessions. That is hie.co.uk/Tinto. Tinto's short for Tune Into Tourism, by the way, if you hadn't worked that out. That's our little acronym there. But thanks very much to all the guests we had today. We had Chris Greenwood from Visit Scotland, and we had Kev and Joe from Strength and Soul. You can check out their website as well. Go and join them for a little yoga retreat. Find your centre. Thank you very much for watching. Keep those conversations going. Make sure you join us for the next 5 weeks so we can find out more about this enormous market, how we can cater for it. You can also find the webinars if you can't join us live. They'll be on the YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/HIE Communications. And keep an eye on our social media channels too. We're going to have lots more films going up there from other providers, so we can learn from them and find out more, and come back to this page on live stream if you want to catch up on today's broadcast or remind yourself of anything we've said. But for now, I've been Julia Sutherland. Thank you very much for joining us.